Let's bring in Bakari Sellers, CNN commentator. He has endorsed Senator Kamala Harris for president. April Ryan, CNN political analyst, and CNN political commentators Andrew Gillum and Angela Rye. Angela, I just want to start with you. Those big questions: who won, who lost, Biden weaker, stronger, Democrats better or worse? A lot going on this morning.
There is a lot going on. Go. There is a lot going on this morning. I think that I was really happy to see some strong moments from Julian Castro. We talked about him a lot this week. He really showed up. He delivered in his from the opening to the closing. I also think that Joe Biden was prepared to take on attacks, but I don't know how well he took them. One of a very telling moment for me also was Cory Booker and how he handled disruption, protesters in the hall, which is how I think a president should handle protesters, listening to what the protest is about and waiting for them to have their time and then reclaiming his. On the contrary, when Joe Biden was interrupted, he looked agitated. He had an agitated smirk on his face, and I don't think he handled it as well. Also, Andrew Yang. I mean, he showed up. He was on point. He was on message. I'm just saying, like, I was like, okay, I can kind of see why folks who don't like politics like this guy.
Hey, Bakari, Kamala Harris came out swinging and never really stopped. I mean, she was, I mean, to tell you the truth, she turned her body language towards former VP Joe Biden and had a number of things that she wanted to hit him on, and she never really let up. She was sort of set to aggressive. And do you think that was effective?
Well, I mean, that's still yet to be seen. But as she was throwing punches, they were also coming back. They were coming back in volumes. And I think that you could see the strategy was to not really address too many people who were to the left of her on that stage and get into a discussion with Joe Biden. And, you know, she had to, and we talked about this yesterday and the day before, she had to go in there, stand in her record on health care, talk about those issues. It was the first time that she wrote out this plan for the country. We spent the first 15, 20 minutes talking about it. You know, she's going to have to continue to defend that plan as we go through. I think it's a good plan. There are many people who think it's a good plan. She's going to have to be firm in that. And then defending your own record, which is something that I think everyone has to do. And Senator Harris did a good job last night, but she's going to have to do a better job as we go through this race of having to defend your own record.
Well, Bakari Sellers set the bar yesterday, Mayor, on Kamala Harris and this health care plan, said she is going to have to be able to explain it, and she was pressed on it. So, do you think she met the bar she needed to?
Well, she was pressed on that and a number of other things. And I think what we're going to want to see as voters as we move forward is that Senator Harris doesn't have a glass jaw, that she can not only deliver a punch, but that she can take a punch and keep on ticking. And I think that has to be, that came, in my opinion, under some question yesterday as a result of the debate, demeanor, posture, response, level of aggressiveness, and not just doing the debate, but in the CNN after interviews that took place by our colleagues across the street.
Not everybody saw those. What did you hear last night that raised your eyebrows?
Well, I mean, so she was asked again about Tulsi Gabbard's attack on her, and it was sort of, you know, she's sitting at 1%, and I think we should move forward.
Condescending.
So there was not a real engagement with it. And again, I don't think that's who she is. I just think yesterday may have taken her a little off guard. But I got to tell you, I was not a fan of last night's debate. I got to be very honest with you. I thought, by comparison to the night before, which you had stark differences on that stage, it felt like in the day before's debate, we got a lot more substantive, sort of conflict between each other. Last night felt a little cheap. It felt much more political than about the people. And I think if you were a regular viewer sitting at home, you wanted to hear more about what these folks were going to do for you. And we all predicted it. We knew that the candidates who were second tier would have to engage and engage aggressively. And I think that happened. And at some moments it felt, godly, I wish we were talking more about the people whose lives we're trying to impact.
That's very true. That's very true.
April, your takeaway?
You know, I'm very much with the mayor. I really had an issue last night with some of the canned responses. I mean, Kool-Aid is a great drink for some, you know, but, you know, I felt that was strategically placed and it was corny. You know,
but aren't all zingers corny? I mean,
we've had some good zingers.
There were moments.
Andrew's like, let me give you some of mine.
There were moments that there were genuine moments, but there were also moments where people had to say, look, I'm going to one-up you. The blood was in the water. Blood in the water was of Kamala Harris because everyone did opposition research on her, as well as Joe Biden. Joe Biden, and when it comes to Joe Biden, you know, it was a fight. It was a fight. He came for the fight. but it was also a handicap match because everyone jumped on him versus him being able to give his information, even give his text number. I mean, he was so shaken and rattled, but we saw a stronger Joe. We saw a wounded Kamala. Because she can give a punch, but she can't take one. And then Cory Booker, I mean, Spartacus, I don't know who it was. It wasn't Mr. Rogers, and it wasn't Walt Disney. I don't know who this person was.
But you didn't think he had a commanding performance last night?
I think that Cory did well last night. I think that
He
there were a lot
did
of
well,
people.
He was different.
I think Cory did well last night. I think that's who Cory is, and I also think Castro did well. But I also want to say that as the night went on, I know that we're giving our lumps to Senator Harris. She actually did extremely well when she focused her fire on Donald Trump. I think that when she was laying out the argument of Donald Trump breaking those promises, I think in her closing, when individuals heard that agenda, when they saw that fearful record as prosecutor, that is the Kamala Harris that people believe can take on Donald Trump. Now, the blessing in all of this is that we're sitting here August 1st of 2019. And so this is the second debate that we've had.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody on that stage will get better. But to Andrew's point, to make this a more clear contest, this field is going to have to winnow. I think that Kamala Harris is still the most talented person in the race. And I do think that Joe Biden is weaker going forward. But we shall see. Last night was a great night for the Democratic Party, but we just have a lot of questions.
I just want to
night
push
one
back.
was better.
go ahead.
I just want to push back really quickly. I think that Bill de Blasio, I don't know where
let's
he
go
was
there.
looking, like he was, but anyway, when he was pushing back on Joe Biden and forcing him to answer questions, that's the role I believe Kamala Harris should have played and what she should play going forward in the debate. I do not think that it's in her best interest to prosecute Donald Trump in her opening or closing. Those are the moments where she should be showing her vision going forward for America. That is really, really important. People know that she can effectively prosecute. If you ever watched this woman, she's a superstar in these Senate hearings. We know that. We need to see a different side of her, and there needs to be a lighter side of her.
But when you talk about the prosecution, I know this probably is it for Bill de Blasio, but they should have gone. I mean, this is it. Yes, overdone toast.
But he doesn't want to go back to New York. So
Right, but here's the problem. But here's,
y'all are hard.
no, but it's real. Last night, what should have happened, those candidates should have jumped on him about Eric Garner. And when he threw it over to the vice president, there are a lot of people who can take responsibility for what happened to Eric Garner and the fact that there has not been justice. For him to say,
Gillum ran
that.
she said, but the moment was lost, and the vice president should have come back as mayor. You are over top of the police department. You could have fired Pantaleo, and that's what we heard the protest last night about Pantaleo.
But the issue may have been, what's the point of punching down to Bill de Blasio? That may have been the calculation.
But to put on the record, this is still an issue.
Yes.
Right
this is
now,
still very
and he said
much
it was
an issue.
old. That's the other thing. Joe
It's
Biden
not
said
old.
it's old. We're talking
is
about old
not
stuff.
old.
They just decided, right, that Eric Garner's case would not go forward with the Department of Justice. It is still time right now. If Bill de Blasio can't even handle his police department, he certainly can't handle.
Can I ask
the
a question
president.
about one thing that Angela brought up, or that's been brought up in general here, also with Kamala Harris, her opening and closing? Donald Trump. Angela, you said something interesting. You said you didn't think that she should have used her time to prosecute Donald Trump. This morning, as we're waking up, a lot of the conventional wisdom is that President Trump got off easy. Do you think he should have been more the focus, Mayor?
Well, I mean, he's always a focus as a part of this, and if he isn't, he's going to insert himself one way or another. I think the way in which we use this president is to simply contrast our visions. His vision for America versus what our vision for America is. But I also got to say, these folks are in a primary, and they're trying to win the first race first. And so I could understand why it is that they're putting attention on each other. In the final analysis, I think last night was probably no damage done to Biden and no real damage done to Harris. But for the second-tier candidates, people are going to be looking, I think, twice at Cory Booker and quite possibly more at Secretary Castro. Yang, I thought, was also very interesting, but those two, I thought, delivered a bit of a command performance, with the exception of the fact that I think Elizabeth Warren still won the night.
Can I explain to the viewers why Andrew Yang is so good at what he does? And everybody at this table has been around politics, covering it, running for office, dealing with candidates in the caucus, Angela. But Andrew Yang might be the most disciplined candidate I've ever seen in my life. With every single question, it came back to his answer of the universal basic income. The question was about women in the workplace, universal basic income. The question was about criminal justice reform, a universal basic income. And so his discipline last night shone through. And there's absolutely nobody on the stage who knows Andrew Yang to throw a counterpunch. I don't know where he came from.
Can I say
But you
one
know
thing?
what? But he put it on the table, and he's going to be around for a minute.
Guys in the control room, hang on one second. We do have Andrew Yang literally waiting on the stairs to walk in and talk to us next. But I do want to ask one question to all of you here, because President Obama, in a way, was a focus of criticism last night.
He was.
Is that smart politics for the Democratic field, Angela?
I love that you asked that question, John, because there's a lot of Twitter chatter about whether or not that's an effective form of conversation and debate. And I think that once we get to the point where we can no longer call into question the records of any president, right, of any person that has been a public servant to this country, we have a problem and we're no longer patriotic. I don't think that he's above being criticized.
Sure.
I think that is absolutely fair game. I think, again, Secretary Castro had a very strong moment with Joe Biden where he said, the difference between me and you is that one of us has learned from the past. I quoted that wrong, but I think that's really important. Joe Biden came and thought that maybe because he was in front of a black audience, all he had to do was say, well, I was the vice president and Obama's record is flawless. That's not real. And so he struggled for a long time, whether it was on TPP or deportation. He struggled with that. And I think it's very important for people to say, you know, we laid a good foundation, but we have a little bit further to go.
Hang on, I'm so sorry, Angela. I was just
April.
told.
That's
April. I was looking at
We
Angela.
got 3 A's here. 3 A's.
Yeah.
Bakari, hang on. Bakari,
I know.
Everyone, cut me a break here. Cut me a break here, because the control room.
Allison, we'll
What they just told me.
Ouch.
What they just told me.
Good clap back.
Well done. What they just told me was you guys are
Okay,
coming
back with us to talk about all of this. We have Bakari Sellers, Andrew Gillum, April Ryan, and Angela Rye back for an encore performance. Bakari, what did you think? Did you expect President Obama to come up so often and in sometimes a critical light on the second Democratic debate stage?
Yes and yes. I expect. I mean, you have the president's former vice president on stage, and Joe Biden gets into this point sometimes where he, instead of talking about the policies of Barack Obama, he attempts to use Barack Obama to deflect from his own record.
Yeah.
And so last night, what you saw was he got caught in betwixt and in between. And so you can't use Barack Obama to defend your record and then disassociate with them on TPP and then disassociate with them on deportations. Either, I mean, you have to be more nuanced and more critical, and Joe Biden had issue with that. And so I do want to say, though, and I think that from the viewership point and viewership perspective, because sometimes we get inundated in our own little bubble, Barack Obama still has a 95% approval rating
Exactly.
amongst Democrats in this country.
Exactly.
And so you have to be very, very cautious, because even when those individuals, I have a feeling when tested, even on immigration, there are a lot of core Democratic voters who still will not like that message of challenging Barack Obama, although I agree, like Angela, that he is not above reproach.
So here's where we are. We're in a new day, as we know.
On New Day.
Yes,
Yeah.
on and in a new day.
Good placement.
Good placement. But here's the issue. We are not fighting like we used to fight 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And the Democrats have to really be careful. Barack Obama is one of the most successful Democratic presidents of all time right now. Bill Clinton, I mean, he's been diminished by Donald Trump, but if you look at the record of Barack Obama, some of this is a family issue that they should be fighting amongst themselves behind closed doors. But then you have to remember, as Barack Obama is this president that still has this great approval rating, and you have this president over here, Donald Trump, who is constantly trying to berate him, bring him down, discredit him.
Yeah.
You have to be careful, because you could play into that.
So did you think they went too far last night on that?
Yes, I do. I do. I do believe that. No, because a lot of people are just coming into this political game right now because of Donald Trump. They don't understand. A lot of people came in because of Barack Obama. And sometimes as you try to give them everything, you can't give everybody steak when they're only on milk.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Angela.
I think our reality, though, is that this is a Democratic primary. So
Correct.
this is the time where you have to challenge Democrats on policy prescriptions they've been putting forward, challenge the proposals, whether or not they're making sense. And part of what we have to go on is, frankly, the last Democratic administration was his.
Right,
So
everything
that's-
was not great, everything was not wrong.
And that's
but
all people were saying.
Right.
I think that there was nothing that was below the belt. I think it was all fair game. And I think that the challenge, though, is if Vice President Biden, to Bakari's point, if he's going to stand on the record of the glory years of Barack Obama, he has to stand on the paint.
I'll just say, I
Gotta
don't,
be
I,
accountable for it.
I
But
don't
be
think
careful
that
how you
this-
fight.
I don't think there's a choice here. It's a false choice. You can absolutely be critical of the elements of this administration that were unsuccessful without saying Barack Obama was a bad president.
He wasn't.
He had to inherit quite a separated government, a divided government that he had to deal with, and it produced some successes, but it also produced some shortcomings. We'll be able to read his book soon. He may be able to reveal what he thought those shortcomings
But
were.
the argument that's out there in the conventional wisdom in the atmosphere this morning is, if Barack Obama's too far right for today's Democratic Party, that shows you just how far the Democratic Party has drifted.
Listen, I looked at the debate and watched commercials paid for by the Donald Trump campaign that had every one of our candidates lined up and called them all socialist and basically said they agree on this, that, and the third. Probably not factually true, but it doesn't matter who the Democratic nominee is. They will have this line of attack. They attempted it before we even entered this race in earnest, basically shading every Democrat as if we're all socialists, we're a monolith, and I don't mean that as a pejorative. I'm simply saying I'm a Democrat, I identify as one, and so far as I know, at very least, 19 of the 20 people that were on the stage of the last two nights also identify as Democrats.
But also this, and let me just, I hope that every Democrat watching, I hope they're watching our panel because it's robust, to say the least.
They are.
But all 20 Democrats have to step their game up, whoever it is, if they're going to beat Donald Trump.
That's true.
You know, I love Kamala Harris. I think I hope she will be the next president of the United States. But even Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, who has this experience, or even Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, I think that this is a very healthy process, because what we've learned after the first two debates is we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, we do.
We have, every candidate has their own flaws. Every candidate has their own issues. Our messaging on healthcare was all over the place. You know, from depending on who you're talking to, our message, it was not an elevator pitch, was all over the place. And what we do know, and this is to steal from Chris, who always talks about this late night, you know, Donald Trump is sitting there on the side, in one corner of the ring with a baseball bat that is just going to bludgeon us with identity politics, and he's going to bludgeon us with things that are not factually true. And to Andrew's point and Buttigieg's point, no matter where we are, he's going to call us socialists. But we have to step our game up. That's why this process is healthy.
Well, I agree with you. I am never one against a competitive primary. I was in one myself that produced me as a nominee. I hope that through this, last night as an example, we can draw distinctions and we can have them strongly on the issues, on the record. I think the cheap political stuff, which most of these viewers actually see through, which is why in the CNN panel that took place after the debate, nearly every one of them said they thought Cory Booker or Secretary Castro were the highest performers.
That's right.
And they cited some of the positive sort of
They
energy
need
that was
that.
brought to it.
And I think on that point, like when you think about how Barack Obama won, he won on hope and change.
That's right.
There was not enough hope and change on that stage last night, and that was, I think, to be contrasted with the day before. Yes,
Agree.
Cory Booker and Julian Castro, but Joe Biden should have been on that. Kamala Harris should have been on that. Even Kirsten Gillibrand, who said that she works, but I still don't think that it was the aspirational promise of what she would deliver. She just said she would deliver, but what is she delivering?
Elections are about
Can we-
the future.
Can we chalk talk? I want to chalk talk 1 second if I can. The Kool-Aid moment from Cory Booker.
Oh, God.
All right.
Because
I'm gonna go ahead and
April
tap
is
out.
still
No,
real.
you're not tapping out. There's no such thing.
All right,
Lean in, lean in.
This was an exchange about criminal. This was an exchange about criminal justice reform. This was an exchange about criminal justice reform. But Cory Booker came after former Vice President Joe Biden with this.
Why did you announce on the first day a zero tolerance policy of stop and frisk and hire Rudy Giuliani's guy in 2007 when I was trying to get rid of the crack cocaine?
Mr. Vice President, there's a saying in my community: you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor. You need to come to the city of Newark and see the reforms that we put in place.
Newark has Kool-Aid.
April, you're crying.
She became the Kool-Aid man on stage.
But listen, the record must reflect that April did begin this segment by saying
Yes.
Kool-Aid is what we use to dye our hair.
No,
I
I
heard you say
said
it.
in some places they don't use it. Now it's
Exactly.
not a drink.
It is a drink. It is not hair
Anyway,
dye.
that should tell you something if
I
it
said
dyes
now-
hair.
yeah.
But I just
Some
want to say
people
this.
do use the
Cory
charity
Booker,
to tie their hair.
I have to say this, Senator Booker, you know I love you, man, but I could just see you going, oh, this is my time. This is my time. Here comes the Kool-Aid.
But with with black phrases, you don't enunciate like every word.
But you also don't
but
say you dipping in the Kool-Aid.
and don't
What is-
even know the
It's
flavor.
not
No,
what
it's-
is it?
What is it?
You
We
all
just-
all
you all up in the Kool-Aid and you don't know the flavor.
You
It's
all
like
up.
it's
We
a-
gotta get that right,
it's a-
Corey.
He
Come on.
was too
It was
pedigreed with it.
I'll just say,
It's like you're all you're,
let
you're
the
dipping in the
record
Kool-Aid.
let the record also show I didn't participate in any part of
Oh,
that.
lighten up, Andrew.
But you know what's crazy?
You're
But
too
you know,
stiff. Lighten up.
do you know that it for certain people who
This
are
is
looking
a
at that,
family conversation.
Like, there are a lot of-
Why are you doing this?
there are a lot- I know we're not supposed to be having this conversation.
Yes, we can.
But
Yes, we
there are a
can.
lot of people. There are a lot of people watching that. A lot of black folk who were like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah,
but
the
but to
authenticity issue.
but to
They
a lot of
clapped in the
I
audience,
know,
though.
but to a lot of Democratic viewers, it was an endearing moment for Corey. Corey had a good night last night.
did.
He had a very good night
But
last night.
partly even him delivering that line, showing the sort of the jocularity of it.
The what?
Come on, man.
Anyway,
Andrew.
the fact that
jocularity of Kool-Aid.
he was having a good time. But the point is
Oh.
voters also need to be exposed to our candidates, not just off of the substance of their policy,
Yeah.
but they're also looking for a feeling like, who is this person?
Their
Could I
personality.
afford to live with them for the next 4 years? Or do I have to have my kids every time CNN comes on because you're embarrassed by what the president may
Correct.
say?
Well, now what I want to know is what kind of Kool-Aid?
Okay, we have it. I
organic.
think Kool-Aid has responded. Do we have something
Kool-Aid
on
is from
Twitter?
Nebraska.
I hope so.
Kool-Aid
Yes.
is from Nebraska.
Oh! They put it. Oh yeah. They put it. Oh yeah, April. You see it? Oh yeah.
We know the flavor.
We know the
We know
flavor.
the- But why is it red? It should have been blue raspberry though, because it was a
We
Democratic
have
debate.
blue, we have red.
Wow.
They did their best.
Okay.
This is not the
We have
conversation
really
that we
gone-
should wrap up the debate camp. the
I want to
CNN
thank
debate
you all
is.
for being with us here all week. And
loved
please
it.
come back. I think we're going to do this a lot more.
We want to
Yeah.
thank
Great.
you. We want to thank you for
Yeah,
having
for sure.
the bold, brave vision, you and the producers, to do this when other networks couldn't or wouldn't. Thank you, guys.
Amen.
Come on,
Hallelujah.
Shep.
Oh.
Every
Every
day.
day.
Some Kool-Aid.
Every
Pass
day.
the
Pass the offering around.
As the shade tree grows above your head.
Thank you, guys.